Hey guys, what's going on? Thanks for joining me this morning. I'm Spiguyver, this is Spiguyver Backpacking, and today I wanted to take another look at the Caldera Cone. So this cone ended up doing really well out there in the field as far as keeping the warmth in, trapping the heat, wrapping it around the sides of the pot, and bringing it to a boil pretty efficiently. So I wanted to figure out what stove works best with this Caldera Cone that I've got here. So this is for my Toaks 550, and so I've got 5 different stoves that I want to use. So this is the Zelf modified Starlight stove. Nice, small, has a little cap on it. What's cool about this stove is you can turn it over after it's fueled. After you've got it all filled up, turn it over, and no fuel is going to come out of it. Similarly is the Cogent stove from Trail Design. So it's got a screw lid so you can keep the fuel in there, and once it's filled up, you can turn it over, nothing's gonna spill out of it. So that's something that sets these two apart, is they both have lids so that if you get done, you boil the water, you can blow out the stove, put the cap on it, and save whatever fuel was still in there. So that's pretty cool with those. Next is the 1210 from Trail Designs. That is what comes with the normal Caldera Cone kits from Trail Design. So you've got that one. I've got my DIY Mini Atomic, and then the little Mini Bull Design Turbo Gnome. Now the Turbo Gnome is a little bit taller than the other stoves here. So you can see compared to the 1210, which is designed for the Caldera Cone, just how much higher it is. But because it has these turbo holes, and those turbo holes are pretty close to the same height as the top of this, I'm gonna go ahead and give it a go, just see how it turns out. So I've got these 5 stoves. I'm gonna try and do 1 ounce in each one. We're gonna do the water in here. I'm gonna use the thermometer just like I do for all my other stove tests. And we'll boil up water, see what the burn time is, what the boil time is, and approximate amount of fuel used, and go with that. All right, the way that we're going to measure out the fuel is the same way I've done it in the other stove tests. And so I've got my scale, I set the stove on there, go ahead and hit tare and get it zeroed out. Then I put 0.75 ounces weight-wise of yellow bottle heat in here, and that equates out to exactly 1 ounce fluid ounce. So I've got the fuel in there. Like I said, we're gonna start out with this one, and let me grab a lighter, get this thing all set up and ready to go here. Okay, so it is 53 degrees in here. The water temperature is right around 60-ish, I believe. Let's see. So I've got 63, 64 on this one. I'm gonna go ahead and light this stove. Give it a second to come up. For all of these, I'm gonna get them to a bloom before I put it on. That looks like it's going pretty well. I'm gonna set this on here. Got it set for 209 degrees. Start, and we'll come back when we've got a boil. Okay, so we are almost there. Looks like we're coming up to a boil. I'm gonna call 209 at 7:20. So 7 minutes, 20 seconds. As you can see, we have a full boil going there. So 7:20, we'll see how long it burns for. All right, for the next test, we are going to use my DIY Mini Atomic. So because this one has the wicking outside, which has to be used to heat it up to get it to come to a bloom, what I did was I put 0.73 inside and then 0.2 into this little cup. And so I'm gonna use that to wet the wick and get it going. Okay, we are all set up for this test. I've got the Mini Atomic right there, wet the wick. It's now lit. So like the other one, I said we're going to wait till it comes to a bloom before we put it on. So that's what we're going to do here as well. And it looks good. It looks like it's starting to come to a bloom. Close this little aluminum door I've got there. Hit start, and we will come back when we've got a boil. 524. Boil in 524 with the mini atomic. Let's come back for burnout. Flame pattern is now out, so I'm going to call that 1152. 1152 for burnout with the mini atomic. All right, next up we are going to go with the Trail Designs stove, the 1210, which was designed to go with the Caldera pot system, the cone system. So let's go ahead and get this one set up and ready to go. I've got fuel in there. We're sitting a little under 60 degrees now. It's dropped a little bit. We'll light this up. Wait for it to start shooting out the top, which it is now. We'll set this on here, hit start, and let's see what this one does. There's 209 at 548. As you can see, we've got a good boil going, and we'll come back with burnout. Okay, it does appear, well, right there, we have flame out. So 718 burnout with the 1210. The next stove we're going to try is the Cogent stove by Trail Design. So this is kind of a newer stove that they've come out with. Right now it's filled up with fuel, and you can see I can turn it over. Nothing spills out at all. So it's a nice, safe alternative to some of the other ones that are out there. So along with that, this is kind of a replacement to the 1210 or an alternative. All right, I've got the water in. Let's get this put in. Got it fueled up. Let's get it lit. All right, so it's lit. Pot is going on. Timer has started. Let's see what this one does. All right, we're at 200 degrees at 4 minutes and 45 seconds. This one is performing extremely well as far as speed goes. There's 206, 207. We've got what would be considered a rolling boil most of the time. 209, right at 5 minutes. You can see there we go, full boil. We'll come back and see how long this one burns for. Flames are definitely dying down. Still producing a good amount of heat, keeping it boiling. Flames are going way down at this point. And there, let's call it 928 for a burnout. All right, the last stove we're going to test is the Mini Bowl Designs Gnome. This is the Turbo Gnome. And so we've got this one fueled up with the right amount of fuel. We're going to get it lit, get this thing started. We're sitting at 58 degrees right there. It is lit. Give it a minute to come up to temperature, just like I did with the others. Set this guy on here. Start it. Let's see how this one does. This one's going to be a little bit outside of the optimal height range, so we'll see. There's 209, 645, and we have a boil, good boil going. Let's see what burnout is with the Turbo Gnome. All right, I'm going to call that flame out 1710. All right, guys, so I went ahead, I tested all these stoves. Got the modified Starlight, the Cogent, the Turbo Gnome, my little DIY mini atomic, and the 1210. So I tested all of these. I tested them with both the Caldera Cone, which was really what I was trying to do, was figure out what was the best stove for the Caldera Cone. But then I went a little bit further and tested it with the little modified one from Zelf. Just because this is so much lighter, I wanted to see kind of where everything stacked up, how it all worked out. So you guys saw the boil times and the burn times with the Caldera Cone. I did additional tests. I did really over the course of 3 days, I probably did about 50 different tests with different stoves, different setups. I even made my own DIY beer can mini Caldera Cone to fit this. I used this one as a template and kind of created something that was a little bit smaller, a little bit lighter, but had less vent holes. Because what I found is if you're on a windy day, this lets a lot of air through there. And so I was looking at something with a little less airflow through there just to see how that worked out. I did tests both indoors and out in my lab. So in the lab, we were in anywhere from the 40s to the upper 20s as I was doing these tests. And then I moved everything inside where it was a nice stable 68 degrees, tried it in there. And really, the boil times and burn times were so similar both indoors and out in the lab that really there was no difference there. And so it validated what I had been doing with each of them. Now, one of the things I will say, so I went through and I'm going to give you guys a list. So the list will show boil times, burn times, and then approximate fuel usage. So the fuel usage comes from me taking the boil time, dividing that by the burn time to give me a percentage of that 1 ounce. So for example, the Starlight modified. So this one, 7 minutes and 20-second boil time, 14 minutes and 30-second burnout. That gives me a 0.51. So it should tell me that a ½ ounce will boil. So what I found as I was doing this was that it would, a ½ ounce with this Caldera Cone would come to a boil. So it would boil the water. As a matter of fact, this one, the Cogent, which when I factored it out was a 0.53, will also do it with a half. As will the Gnome, as will the Mini Atomic, as will the 1210. But the 1210, for example, shows a fuel burn of 0.79 because it had a boil time of 5:48 and a burnout of 7:18. So how will a ½ ounce in this boil that 1.5 cups of water if this is saying that it used 0.79? So here's what I've found out. If I do, for example, the modified, it had a boil time of 7:20 and a burn time of 14:30. Okay, so you should figure that that was with 1 ounce. A ½ ounce should boil for about 7 minutes and 15 seconds. In fact, ½ ounce in this stove will burn for about 9 minutes. So it's not quite apples to apples, and the number that I'm coming up with may not be quite right by using the boil and the burn time. What I find is that it burns hotter when you have that full ounce in there, and so you get a quicker boil time than you would on a ½ ounce, but it does burn longer than half of what you got with an ounce. So something to factor in there, something to consider. But all of these stoves here, or burners, would bring the water to a boil with a ½ ounce. However, when I moved to this one, because it doesn't wrap all the way up the sides, it only goes about 3/4 to an inch up the sides, and because of all the ventilation on there, I mean there's a lot of holes in this thing to vent out the heat, I could not get a ½ ounce in any of these stoves to boil the water in here. So really, we'll talk about all these stoves for a second, but there were 3 that I tested over and over with this setup to see whether or not they would bring it to a boil. And it was the modified, the Cogent, and the Turbo Gnome. So the Turbo Gnome with a ½ ounce brought the water to 192 degrees. Couldn't get a boil, but it burned for a little over 11 minutes. The Cogent only brought the water to 168 degrees. And the Starlight modified brought it to 193 degrees. The Cogent burned only for 6 minutes. The modified burned for about 9 minutes. So you can kind of see Something's going on. So what I was trying to do was I was trying to figure out what the best of these 5 stoves would be with the Caldera Cone system. And so as I started going through them, I immediately knocked 2 of them off the list. So this one came off the list just because I don't really like it all that much, honestly. It's bigger, it's kind of, it burns okay, but it doesn't burn that well. So that one just got knocked off the list pretty quick. Then we came to the Mini Atomic. While the Mini Atomic performed actually really, really well and was one of the better performers in this test, what I didn't like was it's a little bit finicky. You've got to take the screw out to fill it. You got to put the screw in. So there's a piece you could lose while you're out there. Also, you've got to wet the fiberglass wicking that's around the side. So it actually takes a little bit more fuel because of that. I'm not sure exactly how much fuel I was putting on there each time. And there were several times that I wet the wick, lit it, and it did not ignite all the way, so the burners weren't going, and I had to repeat the process to get it going. Because of those, this one came off the list too. So that narrowed it down to these 3. And repeatedly, I did so many tests. This one seemed to come out on top quite a bit. I really wanted to like this one. This one was the one that I really wanted to just love. I wanted to just love this one. It's just a cool little puck design. I like the color of it. But which one do I like the best? Which one worked the best for this system? As far as boil times, this one was super quick, but it burns through a lot of fuel to do that quick. This one's pretty slow. This one's pretty slow. So it's kind of a toss-up. You could go with any one of them and do really well, enjoy it, love it. I'm actually leaning towards these 2, with this one edging it out just a little bit. So the Starlight Modified. Why? Why do I like the Starlight Modified the best out of these 3 right here? Well, something that it shares in common with the Cogent is that I can blow it out, put a cap on it. So if I fill it up with 1 ounce, use that to boil, blow it out, put a cap on it, I save all the fuel that's still in there. It's pretty stable when it's sitting there. It's not something I'm going to tip over. Plus it has, and this is the other key, it has the pot stand that can go on it, so this makes it an actual stove that I could use at another point without this system. But I think for now, this one, maybe edging this one out just slightly, because while I can blow this one out no problem, this one's a little bit more finicky on where I can set it, and it could tip over a little bit, and it doesn't have the cap. While Mini Bull Design does sell a cap that goes on it, it doesn't seal it as well as the caps for either the Cogent or the Starlight. That means you can keep fuel in it. With this one, you could put fuel in there, cap it, but the cap is not that tight, so I'm afraid that I would probably lose a little bit of fuel as I'm doing that. So I think for now, this is going to be my choice. It's a little bit slower, but it's a little bit more efficient, and I can blow it out when I'm done, put a cap on it, save what fuel is left in there. It's light. It is with the lid, we're talking 17 grams. With the lid on this one, it's 17.4 grams, so we're talking about the same amount of weight there. No difference there in the weight. This one's a little bit lighter at 11.1 grams. But, so which is the best? For me, I'm going with this one. For you, it could be something else. So it could be, are you looking for the fastest boil time? If you're looking for the fastest boil time, the Cogent did it. That was 5 minutes flat. If you're looking for the longest burn time, it was the Turbo Gnome, 17 minutes. If you're looking for the lightest of them all, it is also the Turbo Gnome at 11.1 grams. So based on what you're looking for, you can pick the one that works the best for you. I think for now, I am going with the Starlight Modified. So now we've talked about the stoves, let's talk about the actual Caldera Cone. So we've got these 2 Caldera Cones here. This little mini one from Zelf that's made of titanium. This one from Trail Designs, which is aluminum and bigger, comes all the way up to the top. Now, I really like this design. It has its flaws. but I want it to be a little bit lighter. So I've ordered some sheet titanium that I'm going to use this one as a template, make a new one. This one's 30 grams. The small one is 14.9 grams, so just about half the weight. But I think I can go ahead and make this one a little bit lighter and make them a little bit closer to being the same and get that out on the trail and really enjoy it. Just the fact that I can use a ½ ounce in this, boil that 1.5 cups of water and still have it burn. Whereas using this setup, I put the 1 ounce, I would have to use 1 ounce because a ½ ounce will not bring it to a boil. The ½ ounce after 9 minutes was at 193 degrees. So a little over a ½ ounce, I could probably do it here. Whereas I know with a ½ ounce, I can do it in this one. This one blocks the wind a whole lot better. This one just has too many openings in it that the wind can get in. And so once you get into a windy situation, it really degrades the performance. Anyway, guys, that's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm working on. I'll bring you guys back and show you the building of my new Caldera Cone, walk you through the steps, what I'm doing, how I'm doing it, and you guys can decide whether or not you want to make a new one. I will probably make another one for this as well that has smaller, less holes, that more matches the beer can one that I made, just to see whether or not I can get better performance out of that as well. Thanks for joining me today, guys. I appreciate it. I will see you guys down the trail.